Good morning. Welcome to this Sunday morning Dharma talk. So I had a couple of things I wanted to make sure that I said, or read to you, I should say. Many of you have responded with generous donations to support my vision, our vision of a community mindfulness center, and have deep gratitude for your help. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're still a ways from our goal, and we'll be unveiling a Giving Tuesday. I think it's on your birthday, December 3rd. Wow.
Give lots.
Please consider us in your holiday and end of year giving plans. If you have some intention or willingness to do this, please help us with that. It's not easy to do that without funds, without support. So thank you. This morning's Dharma talk, since today is the 3rd anniversary of the Order of Immediate Light, that is it 4th?
Tomorrow.
I'm not good with numbers. It's tomorrow? So it is 4?
Yeah, look at the bottom of your tenets. It has.
Oh, you wrote me a note. Why didn't you write me a note about how to do what I trained to up here? See. Is there a date there somewhere?
Uh-huh.
Oh, 2020. Do the math, in other words. 4 years ago. Thank you. Order of Immediate Light was established, and I did that with the help of my Dharma heir, OOIL. I'm not sure where he's at today. He's probably watching his son. Is that true?
We had a family visit.
Oh, a family today. Okay, so he's not here today, but he maybe he can tune in at some point. But anyway, I want to be grateful for his help in doing this, because I couldn't have done this without him or without the rest of the people who are here to the idea there with the Order of Immediate Light is to establish that is because my teacher from Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche from Tibet, and my Zen teacher, my Zen master, Goenchina Roshi, was from Japan. And so bringing together those two traditions of Tibetan Buddhism and the Japanese Soto lineage, Order of Immediate Light. So bringing those together, and this is happening quite slowly, I think. There's no intention to put this together like a couple of recipes and push them together. So just to let them come together as it seems appropriate at any given instance or situation. However, the tenets, or the kind of guiding understanding of this Order of Immediate Light, there's 2 ways I can do this. One, you can just recite it. Can you recite them?
I'm rusty, but I could try.
Don't lead with an excuse, please. Oh, that's probably a good idea. But okay, go ahead. And if you don't get it, then I have them printed out here.
Consciousness always finds its own form.
First one, please say it slowly.
The form consciousness finds is empty as it appears and full as it is.
Okay, so the first one was consciousness.
Always finds its own form.
Okay, what does that mean?
I don't know.
You don't know. There's an honest monk. Okay, how about the second one?
The form consciousness finds is empty as it appears.
Empty as it appears. So however it appears, it's empty as it appears and
full as it is.
full as it is. So that's an area that is directly talking about the nature of consciousness that grasps, rejects, and shuts down passion, aggression, and ignorance. This is why we can't see reality, and why we go to war with ourselves, go to war with others, why the world is so full of craziness, is because consciousness itself is not understood as it is. Third tenet is quite a bit longer, but quite an interesting elaboration. And as I said, this is something that I did with the help of Chazan. We talked about this 4 years ago about what is a good way These are basically my ideas about it, but he helped me refine it quite a bit, and I appreciate it. Would you please recite the third one if you can?
I get this wrong.
Go ahead.
As consciousness finds its own form,
As consciousness finds its own form,
it can actually disown territory and may lose or gain any implied parameters
of personhood,
or otherness.
personhood or otherness, any implied parameters. This is the speculation or the projection of someone else is over there and I'm over here, ego. The ego here and the ego over there. This is part of the confusion that we deal with. Without,
Acceptance or rejection.
okay. Next one. The next paragraph.
Let me back up.
Though they are observed, nothing is gathered.
Nothing is held, nothing is rejected.
This includes any and all forms, uniforms, or traditions of the Buddha's Dharma. In this way, the path is always open to be what it is, as it is. Consciousness always finds its own form, with and without status, with and without location. So it's just a way of using concepts to elaborate on the nature of consciousness that is not elaborating anything. Consciousness is not doing anything. And your true nature, if I may say it this way, I'm not saying in the tenets, but the idea here is to help you, support you. If you want to look and see who you are, what this is, if you have some confusion about your identity, this is a way. It's not the only way. There's probably countless ways of doing this throughout the universe. This is a way that someone stumbled onto 2,500 years ago that we refer to as the Buddha. What he understood the nature of what it meant to be in this illusion of being alive as a separate human being from other human beings. Or objects or things or trees or rocks or clouds or skies. And so on. So rather than elaborate on that, I could read that, maybe the first one, and then if there's any questions, I'd rather respond to questions about, go ahead.
In your mind, I have a question just on the concept of protecting. You and Sokuzan created the Order of Immediate Light
Yes.
for protection
Yes.
of,
Thank you. Yes, the idea is we could do this without forming an order or a structure of immediate light, without having these tenets, and still do this, but then it doesn't have, the reference points need to be conceptual, so that there's some kind of a protection. And one way that I could characterize that, if someone in the Buddhist tradition from another lineage, from the Karmakagyu or the Gelugpa or the Sakya or the Nyingma or the Soto Zen, the Rinzai Zen, or any other school of Buddhism were to come this direction, come in this monastery, then they would have an idea about how we're practicing here. Not necessarily better than what they're doing, just a particular way of bringing forms together and emphasizing certain things that we're emphasizing here from the Tibetan tradition or the Japanese Zen tradition. And maybe from other areas that aren't particularly aligned with either one of those. So it's the idea of including things that will be fundamentally helpful to any one of us to train our minds to see more clearly how our minds work and how we tend to make trouble for ourselves, thinking that someone else is causing it, make trouble for ourselves, thinking that a situation has caused it, and not being responsible for the karma that arises in your mind stream. You have to be responsible for this. I don't care if you're having a positive, negative, or neutral feeling, emotion, or thought. If you blame anything or anyone for it, this is the very nature of confusion. No one's to blame for anything. It just looks that way. That's part of the illusion that this spiritual path, as I understand it, is addressing. And this is what this Order of Immediate Light is about, is to help you see this. This is extremely hard to do. And as you practice it, those of you who are monks and have been doing this for 10 or 20 years, know how very, very hard this is to do. It cannot be a hobby, can it be? Well, yeah, you could meditate a few times a week. You could read the Dharma once in a while. You could get together with a group of people and study it. Sure, go ahead. But the depth of the confusion goes back not just this lifetime. I'm not even advancing any belief in anything. I don't believe in past lives. I'm not asking you to. It's an illusion. Past lives. That doesn't mean they aren't there. Just like a movie is unreal, doesn't mean it isn't there. But you watch the movie and you get magnetized by it, even though you know it's unreal. You still are affected by it and might even bring you to tears or to fear.
Yvonne, just back to the word protection, what is it we're protecting then? And what from?
We're just protecting this particular form so we can continue to practice in this way, so we can return to the form, not like it's right, and the way the Rinzai Zen, working with the practicing 100 koans is wrong. It's just we're not teaching that. Look,
Does protection imply an other?
it just what it implies is a passion, aggression, ignorance, getting a foothold somewhere, so you no longer can even see the value of training the mind. It looks like I've trained enough. I know enough already. I understand already. It's the path is long from the point of view of description, and does not move at all from the point of view of actuality. Nothing actually occurs. That's why it's a spiritual path rather than a mundane path of getting somewhere. Has to be seen. If you don't see it, difficult. Go ahead.
Early on, I think it was with the first tenet, something about consciousness is not understood. I can't recall. I'd have to listen to the recording again. Well, consciousness always finds its own form.
It does.
What is it that we don't understand about consciousness?
We really don't even know what consciousness is because we're so busy attaching to the objects in consciousness. The emotion of negativity, the emotion of positivity, the emotion or the positionality of indifference. We're always looking for some kind of reification or validation of who we are as somebody having that feeling, who we are as somebody having that failure or that success. Always some kind of positionality that reinforces the primary situation, which is mistaken identity about this, mistaken identity about that, or the other. More?
Thank you.
Yoga bowing, are the objects that are moving in consciousness, is that movement also consciousness?
Ultimately, there isn't anything but consciousness. So yes. But we have to start by watching what comes and goes without doing anything with it. Don't do anything but receive it. That's what you have the sense fields for. The sense of seeing doesn't produce any sights. Sense of sound does not produce sounds. It receives sounds, we receive sights. Sense of thinking does not produce thoughts. It just looks like it does. You actually do not think. Don't believe it. Look at it. Just watch the thoughts come and go. You do not produce thoughts. If you do produce thoughts and you think you do, then this is the very nature of the ego or illusion or narcissism, self-centeredness. More?
Yoga bowing, what causes us to separate the objects out?
Fear. Fear of too much space, fear of too little space, fear of too much of anything, fear of too little of anything. Kind of a poverty idea that we haven't got enough, or fear that we've got too much, or that something is meaningless and we don't need to be concerned about it. We can just go do something else, go for a walk.
Yoga bowing, you just said something is meaningless. If something also is giving us meaning, is that out of fear also?
Same thing. It's not so much the meaning, it's the grasping at the meaning. I've got it, this is right, finally I got it. And even to say, finally I got it. Or maybe you don't say finally, just say, I got it. A very, very low level, almost imperceptible arrogance the obvious arrogance. We all know somebody that's just full of themselves and is arrogant, thinks they know everything, and is always holding forth as, might have been your dad, who knows? Certainly was my dad, my stepdad. Big know-it-alls. I'm one of them. I would have to be, otherwise I wouldn't know about this. I would have to have gone through this myself. Otherwise I wouldn't know it. I couldn't help you with a thing unless I'd experienced some of the things that you may be dealing with or facing. And they have not gone away. You do not have to get rid of anything. It is an illusion. You hear my voice start to raise and get intense when I talk about this, because I see people that don't see. When I see you and I listen to you and I talk to you and I interact with you, I can see you're totally swamped by your belief in your thoughts and your ideas and your emotions, and you act out of those as if they're somehow true. They're not true. If you think they are, you'll continue to chase this and run away from that. Chase this, I want more of this. Run away from that, don't need any more of that. That's too much, I gotta get away from that. And should you? Maybe you should run towards or run away or shut down passion, aggression, and ignorance. But you could also, at the same time you're doing that, you could train your mind to see, so you're actually witnessing the way the consciousness is working to act out of fear, out of paranoia. It's about being aware of that. It's not about shutting it down, because if you try to correct it or fix it too soon, it's a misunderstanding of the word discipline. It's a misunderstanding of the word control. You don't have any control over anything. If you think you do, then you'll continue to fight with what? The illusion. Fighting with shadows. Don Quixote, jousting with windmills. Good example of fighting with illusions and thinking they're real and thinking you're conquering things. Yes.
Susan Bowing. If we don't have control, but we're still functioning out of ego, what feels abraded by that, seeing the lack of control?
So what is it you want to know? Or could you paraphrase that a little bit so I can get closer to what it is you're looking for?
It seems like if we're functioning out of belief, we're functioning out of our ego, but there's still some quality of like abrasion that shows up for me if I am watching that I can't help but do that.
Yes.
So is it ego that's being abraded by watching, functioning out of ego?
Yeah, yes, it's feeling that you're failing, that you can't do it, or that you need to get control, or you're blaming someone for something or some situation you can't quite get control. More?
Susan Bowing, I'm just wondering how ego can feel like it's doubling over on itself.
That's the illusion. It's that we believe that there is a solid being here who can win, solid being here who can fail, solid being here who can somehow get control, or a solid person who is losing control. The whole idea of control is the illusion. There is no control. There is no one. There are things that look like, it looks like this is controlling that. That's unreal. There are words for that in the Buddhist tradition, dependent origination, pratitya samutpada, ancient word that goes back thousands of years of people looking at this way before we got here, about what is it that this causes that? Is something actually causing something else? Is there such a thing as this moment here and 20 minutes later another moment there? Is that real? Find out yourself. Don't believe me. Not that you're even tempted to. But find out, look at your own mind, and what you do is you do one thing that you have a little bit of say-so about. Slow way down, cut into the speediness of the ego mind, hold still, sit symmetrical, and watch the asymmetry of the mind go this way, and believe this, believe that, shut down on this, move this way, move that way. Watch the body express that. Just observe it, don't fix anything, don't correct. Yes, sir.
Sokuzan, you say that nothing has changed. Do you still operate out of things looking like they're real?
Yes, of course I do. I couldn't help you if I didn't. If I'm somehow above all this. I see through the illusion. Are you envious? How do I look? Enviable? Not really. No, I'm swamped in the same thing you are. The only difference that I can use concepts to point to is I know that it's unreal. That's all I can do. But I'm at the mercy of this the same as you are. It's just that I'm less likely to be trapped by it than you are. That doesn't mean I won't get trapped. I might get trapped 15 times a day, but I see it. It's not like some kind of a credential like Sokuzan sees this, so he only gets mad for 15 seconds. No, I could be mad all day long. You need to see it. The karma that is behind your lifetime or anyone's in here is unfathomable. You can't find the source because the whole source idea is an illusion. The cause and effect is unreal. But it has to be considered because it is a way of looking at the illusory nature of consciousness. Go ahead. If you have more. Yes.
Shadow bowing. You said the only the only difference is that you know that it's unreal. How is that knowing in the awareness and not a concept about it?
Because they don't know that I know it. There's no element of I know this. When I'm saying it, sure, but there's no reference point there. I can't. There's nothing back there. There's no one there. There's no one here. I see an illusion talking to an illusion. I see an illusion listening to an illusion. This is completely unreal. Realize it. Does it help to scold you a little bit? Of course it does. Yes.
Shadow bowing. So when you say that, there's nothing to back it up.
I have no proof. It's the first time I heard about this was my teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, gave a talk called Buddha Dharma. Buddha Dharma, awakened truth, without credentials. Buddha Dharma without proof, with no proof. It's because it's awakening in consciousness only. And so there's no items in there. Even though the items keep showing, my hand keeps moving over here and you keep saying whatever you're saying and I hear it and the illusion continues to go and we get up and go this way or go that way and eat food and go to the restroom and drive away in a car, come back, on and on, year after year after year after year. Illusion, it's unreal. And all the emotions and feelings that arise are also unreal. They do not happen to a personhood. Possible to realize that? Go ahead.
Shadow bowing. If you're teaching and you're pointing to something that you don't have a credential for, is it any different than lying?
It's exactly like lying. Thank you. It's exactly, but it's also not different from the truth. You've actually transcended positive and negative, neutral. You've transcended life and death. You actually realize that this body, if you realize this, this body can drop away and nothing will happen to you. But if you don't realize it, and if you think you are this body, when this body drops, the consciousness itself will go down and you could end up in hell. I'm not saying there's a real hell. That's an illusion too. But you could, if you're creating hells in your mind, they don't go away. Why? Because they're unreal. They don't have to go away. But if you see they're real, you bring on the demons. It's that kind of thing. You're not frightened of anything. You're also not some kind of macho, you're going to run into battle with a sword or something like that and kill the demons. No, they're unreal. Demons will all you have to do is say, so how's it going, demon? And you relate to them. If they think they're real, then you relate to them in their reality. You should do the same thing with your own heartbeat, with your own mind stream, with the suffering in your mind. Relate to that suffering. Be very, very kind to yourself. Don't fight with yourself. Don't fix yourself. Don't do nothing. Don't do anything with it. Just observe, observe. Awareness, awareness, awareness. It's about awareness. More?
Thank you very much.
Junchu?
Junchu bowing. How do you know that the illusoriness or unreality that you say you see or you know, how do you know that that isn't just some sort of illusion?
It is an illusion. Good one. It is. Of course it is. More, keep coming. It's like a Mobius strip, you know what that is? Looks like it has two sides. No. Wait a minute. Mobius strip has two sides? Speak up. Does it?
Sometimes.
Got me there. I just lost. Thank you. Thank you for the help. Did we get towards anywhere near what your question was?
Junchi bowing. How,
Yes. How?
what is the mechanism or the thing that is receiving or perceiving the illusoriness?
The same thing that is the delusion, that the same thing that is receiving it is what is being received. They are not separate. The mechanism is, they're not separate from each other. That's why it's an illusion. It looks like something's over there, something over here is listening, something's over here is speaking. It's unreal. This is unreal. And it is such an incredibly developed and expanded reality that we have bodies, we have glomeruli in our kidneys, we have a digestive tract, we have this amazing situation that reinforces the illusion. And this has been going on for just, the time doesn't even figure into it because it's way too long. Here we are as little bits of consciousness showing up as a separation temporarily so that you have the opportunity to see who you are. That's all this is about. It's always about awareness. And it's about realizing, and you can do this. This is possible. You don't need to believe in Buddhism. I don't care whether you're a Buddhist or not. I'm not even a Buddhist myself. I just study Buddhism. I have no identity as a Buddhist, even though I'm a Buddhist monk. What does that mean? I'm kind of a nobody, like anybody who's truly a Buddhist monk. The Buddha himself was nobody. No particular person. Gone. Empty. Yes.
Junchi bowing. How do we know that when you say you're teaching out of what you see or what you understand or what you're looking at, how do we know that you're not just deceiving yourself into thinking that?
I am. I would have to be. I couldn't help you. If I'm better than you, I'm not deceiving myself that you guys are. Therefore, you need my help. No, I'm not separate from you. I'm so completely not separate from you that I don't have a credential. I don't have a position in time. I don't have a position in space. My body does. Body is here. Hands are here. But this is an illusion. So when you say, how do you know? There's no way you can know. The knowing it's like a not knowing. Yeah, I don't know how else to say it. It's using the description and language of knowing and not using the polarity. The kind of knowing that is sometimes referred to as wisdom. Wisdom just knows wisdom, or you could also say wisdom doesn't even know anything. There's no way you can challenge this, because I would always have a response for everything you ask or say or challenge, because I don't have a position. But if you're a student of mine, you come to me with any position at all, pride, envy, avarice, passion, aggression, and ignorance, and you're a student of mine, I'm running my finger right against your nose, but only with your permission. If I don't have your permission, you're fine. Go ahead and do whatever you want with your life. It's up to you, your life. If you're a student, don't get too close. Might want to keep your distance. Have I warned you? I'm warning you now. Don't get close, because this will not be fun. And all you monks, you might have made a mistake. This might be very challenging for you. You ready to run away? Run away? Run away? Not today. Maybe tomorrow. It's difficult. That's all I'm saying is difficult. I know it's so difficult with my teachers. So difficult to have someone pointing right at what you need to see and be embarrassed because you can't see it. Very, very hard. But if you see it, it's over with. The war is over. No longer, I'm not saying you won't have negative feelings or emotions or hopes and fears, of course you will, but they're unreal. That doesn't mean they hurt any less. They might hurt more because you don't have an ego in there telling you stories or blaming anybody. You're not downloading how you feel on somebody else. You actually are responsible for your feelings. Finally, after all these hundreds and hundreds, countless lifetimes of coming into existence, passing out of existence, here we are again. See it. Don't live another day, another week, another year without seeing your true nature. Or if you do, then, well, I'll see you next time. Maybe. Yes?
Sokuzan, how are you responsible for blame if nothing has changed?
It's an illusion. Nothing is fundamentally changed because it's an illusion. Nothing happens. This is not something I invented. It's something that I heard as a teaching from the 16th Gyalwa Karmapa in 1981, just before he passed away. Nothing happens. Simple, direct, pointing at the fundamental nature of reality. All he's just saying is, this is not real. That's another way of saying that relatively is all the things you think are happening is unreal, so therefore nothing is happening. That's why you do not have to get rid of your ego. You just have to see that part of the personality that operates out of wanting something, not wanting something, or ignoring something is trying to establish an artificial identity that is based on open fear. Yes? Good question? More?
Sokuzan, I don't remember the quote that came from one of those talks, but there was something about pride being the most difficult aspect of the path.
I would say that. I say it's the final, I call it the final gate, because you can do everything else, but that part of the seventh consciousness that thinks there is somebody to be protected or advanced is very difficult to see. It's so convincing. And there's the kind of pride that's puffy and shows up, that's more recognizable, and then there's the kind of pride that's kind of self-effacing, that I'm nobody and I can't really get anywhere, and you don't have to help me because I'll be fine by myself. And so, you do that?
We did both of those, but yes.
So you're ambidextrous?
Ambidextrous.
Ambiratibus? And Ambiratibus. I didn't know you knew Latin. Is that Latin?
Yes.
Okay. Don't lie to me. Yes, those are good.
Those are good bowing. I find the first tenet surprisingly confusing or hard to understand.
Consciousness always,
Finds its own form.
why is that confusing?
Well, the first and last words are difficult enough to feel like you can understand them. But each word in between, the always, for instance, what do we mean by always if time isn't real?
Well, it never fails, always. So it's using the illusion of time to be able to even talk. Consciousness, which is the space in which things show up. This can't show up without consciousness. The other interesting thing is if you begin to see what shows up in consciousness by watching the mind stream, thoughts, emotions, thoughts, feelings, memories. Just observe, observe, observe. Don't add anything to it. Don't change it. Don't call it something else. Don't elaborate on it. Do nothing. Keep it in its very simple form. When I say keep, I don't mean do anything with it. I'm just, however it shows up, that's how it is. Receive it that way. And by doing that, eventually you see that the space in which the thoughts or emotions or things occur are not separate from that which is occurring. Which occurs and the space in which it occurs are not two separate things. Non-duality applies to everything. There isn't anything that can hide out from that teaching or that understanding. There are not two things anywhere. So consciousness always finds its own form, just means that it's meant to help you see that whatever you're looking at, it's just that location temporarily. So whatever shows that up, that's it, is another way of saying the same thing. You're sitting there, you have just to use an extreme example, you're sitting, everything's fine, then a dog starts barking next door and you want to kill the dog. You ever had that feeling? Or maybe you want to somebody else makes a lot of racket, who has a lawnmower, and you want to go and strangle them. Well, maybe you wouldn't want to strangle, just hit them, or maybe just yell at them, or maybe just stand on the back porch and go while they're driving by with their lawnmower, because they can't hear you, so or maybe they could see you. Any of those ever show up? That's consciousness finding its own form in the confusion. But if you liberate yourself, when I say yourself, I'm just using that as a way of talking about the consciousness. If you liberate yourself, those emotions still may come and go, but they can't find anyone that feels that way. The emotion can be really difficult, but because consciousness has been liberated, you've trained your mind to see clearly. You are actually, it's like you're at the drinking fountain of karma. You're drinking your karma in. You're no longer objecting to your emotions. You're no longer agreeing with your emotions. You're no longer fighting with your emotions or your memories or thought. You don't blame anybody for how you feel, and you may not feel good because the karma that brought you into this space in the first place may have a lot of sharp edges in it, a lot of abrasiveness, and could be very, very brittle. But what I'm saying to you, you can do it. Just receive it. Whatever shows up, receive it. And that way consciousness always finds its own form, and you can liberate yourself from this. When I say from, even that is actually, there isn't anything that's to be liberated from, because it's what? An illusion. Go ahead.
Ozuku bowing. So always, it sounds like points to can't fail to,
Yes.
I think you said. And then its own is pointing to non-duality, is that right?
Yes.
What about the word finds? What do you mean? What's being
It's
pointed at?
it's just paying some lip service to the illusion of something happening. It's always finding something. Just like you're sitting down and you're meditating, or you're just looking out the window and then a bird flies by. That's the instantaneous. Is that a word? Instantaneous. You just see it. It's just that. The whole everything is happening in that way. It's just this. There's no moment. The past and the future are illusions, and the present moment is also an illusion, based on what? Then and then. Those are unreal. This is unreal. Realize it, and live a fearless life, because nothing is threatened. Who you are can't be threatened. There isn't anyone. More?
All right now, thank you.
Shoto bowing, is it saying something different or going too far to say consciousness is its own form? Bowing.
You could say that, but that's kind of advanced. Trying to say that you understand that? Okay, good. Yes, sir. Kenzan.
Kenzan Bali, with the tenets present consciousness as a sort of a something.
Yeah.
Is it possible to talk about it as an absence?
Yeah.
How do you speak of consciousness as the absence of something?
This is not a unique teaching. Teachers down through centuries have taught through silence. Sometimes that's the best teaching is silence. But you might have to say a couple of words.
Shoto bowing, you talk often about how we might blame people for our feelings.
Yes.
And I've been looking at jealousy. And is there some blame already happening for something like jealousy to show up? Bowing.
Sure. Thinking that someone has something that belongs to you, or someone has got something that you should have gotten, or any kind of possession or territoriality happening there, that of course implies that there's some kind of belief that there's a separate person and needs to have that, or shouldn't be losing that. So there's a whole story behind that jealousy situation that reinforces it. And it's not that it isn't relatively true. someone could be, with your spouse or with your, or maybe get credit for something that, you did something and somebody else comes along and, gets credit for something that actually you did. And so it could be some kind of jealousy there. Could also be between intimate partners and so on, a really powerful area for jealousy to show up there. And it's reinforced by our culture. It reinforces this whole situation. The mundane path is all about possession, who owns what, and who has control, who doesn't have control, who has this and who has that. Lots of boundaries and territory. And we need some of that. We need laws. We need some kind of forms and regulations, just like we have them in the monastery. You need to have some kind of form. Otherwise, it's just chaotic, and the chaos comes out of the people that are operating there are not liberated. They're operating in the illusion as if it's real.
Shoto bowing, are emotions themselves a kind of blame? Bowing.
It could be. It's not so much the emotion themselves, it's grasping at the emotion or pushing the emotion away. It's what you do with it. The emotion itself is just one of the descriptions has been self-existing. It just shows up, and there's no trail. It doesn't leave any trail behind it, like where it came from or who caused it. It's just the emotion. It's possible to experience or receive emotions, thoughts, and so on, as if they don't belong to anyone, as if they have no source. Because fundamentally they don't. We create the source so that we can have a position of I don't like that, or a position of I want more of that, some kind of control or materialism. More.
Shoto bowing, can you say something to the teaching of co-emergent and how that works with the illusion of the cause?
Co-emergent is basically saying it's a way of talking about duality, this and that, or the duality that confuses us, not just the duality of night and day or life and death, right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, and all the other dualities that are not separate from each other. You can't have day without night. If you had day and you never had any night, you wouldn't have any name for day, would you?
I probably would.
You probably would, yeah. So, asking about co-emergent, which is a traditional teaching, is basically saying that wisdom and confusion arise together. So you don't go to wisdom and illusion or delusion or ignorance falls away, and you don't get submerged in ignorance or delusion, and the wisdom is hidden somewhere. They arise together. They're not separate. And when you see that, if you fundamentally see it that way, co-emergent wisdom or co-emergent, those two things are rising together, show up together, you see they're not separate. This is what the Buddha discovered 2,500 years ago, as far as we know. He looked at his life, he looked at his mind, he went into retreat, he practiced for, as we know, 6 years, I guess it was, somewhere in that area, and apparently saw his true nature, came out and began to teach. And so it's a separation that we see that they're not separate, they're fundamentally not separate, and that's seen, it's understood, or we see that they arise together, the confusion and the clarity or the wisdom show up together.
Shoto bowing, so in an example of something like jealousy comes up and there's an apparent situation, are you saying those two things are co-emergent but not, like the situation's not causing the emotion?
I'm not tracking what you're asking about right now.
Are we imputing the cause to things that are just co-arising?
That I would agree with, yes. There is no cause. Nothing causes anything else. If you think it does, well, I'm not accusing you of anything, but you're in for it. When I say you're in for it, I mean, it's going to be difficult because we continue to take whatever arises and look for a reason. It's not that this moving through space doesn't arrive at the tabletop and make a third thing called a sound, or a sight, because you see them come together. We're not trying to get rid of the illusion. We're just saying that is, you can't trace the original cause. There's no original cause. This one looks like a cause, and that one looks like a cause because it's in the way of this. And the third thing is the effect. So, and that is very, very seductive. In our mind, their whole thing is who did, who, what, who's to blame, and who gets credit. We just live our lives that way. We live our lives in that way with our own mind stream of trying to find right and wrong, or trying to get control of that so we don't do that. But my way of talking about this, you've heard it before, is I don't know who put this table here. I don't know who made this stick. Yeah, I do. Ian Forsberg made this stick. But what I'm saying is, where did this hand come from? So this hand came from lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. As this came, at one point was inside of a tree somewhere. So that we ignore all the causes and conditions in the illusion of time, and then this caused that. So we blame this. We can go to court and prove this caused that sound. It's against the law to cause a sound. The stick made it. Wait a minute, there was a hand behind it, so we can blame the hand. I'm being a little bit silly here, but that's what we do. We'll actually look down and try to find the first cause. And as soon as we find something that has any kind of temporary, relative, artificial stability to it, we'll blame. Yes, sir?
Yin Long Bowing. Sometimes you talk about not believing our thoughts.
Yes.
It seems over here that before I even get to that, I believe the appearances.
Yes.
So how does meditation affect my tendency to believe appearance?
So one of the ways that Trungpa Rinpoche talked about it is just kind of wears it out. Because over time, if you sit enough, meditate enough, that you eventually watch things come and go, and you kind of notice how you believe this, you believe that. But then over time, you notice there's less and less really concern about what's happening in the mind. I've said this in a very specific and emphasized it, that if you see what this is, you won't care how you feel. I don't mean that you'll suddenly feel that way. I'm just saying you eventually begin to see that everything that shows up, because you practiced watching in your mind, thoughts come, you watch them. Thoughts go away, you watch them. Emotions come, memories come, you watch them. You train the consciousness to just receive. You actually see, you actually hear. You don't add thoughts onto it, opinions, ideas, and judgments. Maybe for the first few years, but eventually you just see, you just hear, smell, taste, touch, feel, and you just think, and you just feel. And the personhood cannot get any kind of nutrition from that. The personhood the ego starts to come apart because it gets its fuel from any kind of grasping, any kind of rejecting, and any kind of shutting down. And when those three poisons start to come apart because the consciousness is beginning to see through the teachings of the Buddha, through one's perception of wanting to really see the truth yourself, it starts to come apart. It just takes time. And for some people, you might have an instant flash of this. So you could have a big change in your life depending on the karma that brought you into this world. Other people, it's a very slow, even arduous process of just looking at the delusion over and over and over until you see that the delusion and wisdom are not two separate things. This is called co-emergence, and it's possible, and it is not an experience. I'll say that again. It's not an experience. This is an experience. Where is it now? Gone. Anything that's experience, when it shows up, will go away. But that which does not show up cannot retreat, cannot go away, can't disappear. Realize it.
Shoto bowing. Is just seeing, just hearing, and so on the same thing as seeing what this is? Bowing.
Just seeing, just hearing is the practice. That's the path. The ground is suffering, difficulty. There may be enough difficulty there to bring you into the path of the Buddha's Dharma or a practice of meditation, and it may not. It's up to you. You may show up here, you're a fully ordained monk, so probably life has been challenging enough for you to show up on this path. What are you smiling about? Are you suffering? Well, what's the big grin about?
Yes.
Okay. So you think you're gonna get something out of this?
All the time.
Good. Was that answer your question?
You did.
Did I? You just want me to leave you alone? Yes.
Can you answer some questions from Zoom and YouTube, please?
All right. Go ahead.
Yoka Bowing, question from Ross in Ireland. Ross Bowing, is being afraid of the hell realms covering up something else? Bowing.
Well, it's covering up your Buddha nature, because Buddha nature is not afraid of anything. Buddha nature is not separate from the hell realm. You don't have to be afraid of anything you're not separate from. The most horrible thing, if you're fighting it, it's going to be intense. It's going to be difficult. So I would say yes. So that's why it's so important to train your mind, see clearly, so that when you run into the hell realm in your mind stream or in your life, because there's plenty of hell in our lives. So it's very important to receive it as much as possible. And that receiving, one more thing, may involve reacting to it in such a way that you actually fight with hell. You may have to do some of that. There's no correct way. There's no standard. To other people, you may look like you're fighting, but
Yoka Bowing, question from Susie. Susie Bowing, can we be happy even if we know life is suffering?
that's about the only way you can do it. Because if you think otherwise, then the happiness comes and goes. Whereas if you realize what this is, what the Buddha is pointing at, then there isn't anything but a happiness, but it's not a relative happiness that comes and goes. It's a basic understanding of what this is. You're no longer confused by what this is. So therefore, you're not looking for some kind of entertainment kind of happiness that is going to fade away in 3 days. Any more?
Thank you.
Zoom?
I don't know. Are there any on Zoom questions? Naveed, you must have a question. You don't have a question?
Maybe Bowie. I was wondering if day and night are actually the opposite of each other, or is it our description that put them in front of each other?
Yeah, it's just a description. It's just that the variability is all over the place, but then we call this darkness and this light, or this day and this night. But we need to have a reference point. Ego feels so much safer if it knows right from wrong and should and shouldn't. Kayun.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
Ian Bowing. I was reading The Myth of Freedom, and there was a passage I wanted to ask you about.
Yes.
As it kind of pertains to the post-election feelings that many people are having and cutting off
Yes.
members who offended you or whatever. And Trungpa Rinpoche writes, keeping to the path does not necessarily mean only trying to be good and not offending anyone. It does not mean that if someone obstructs our path, we should try to be polite to them and say please and thank you. That does not work, and that is not the point. If anyone gets abruptly in our path, we just push them out because their intrusion was frivolous. The path of Dharma is not a good, sane, passive, and compassionate path at all. It is a path on which no one should walk blindly. If they do, out. They should be awakened by being excluded.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, as a bodhisattva who's vowed to put others first, there are a lot of people that I would classify as assholes who I don't like and don't want to be around.
Yes.
Is that at odds with the vow to cut people out?
No. Very good. Very good question to bring that up. No, it's not. It's about being genuine. It's about just, if you're with someone who is being, using Trungpa Rinpoche's word, frivolous, and it's just, their confusion is such that they're flailing around and hurting you and hurting others. No, you might have to act with them. That's why I was talking about demons. You might have to fight with demons. You just because we aren't trying to be some kind of completely peaceful person who's holy. I'm not saying there aren't people who function that way or teach that way. I do not. I'm just saying you may have to function with and actually dance with the confusion that is being thrust in your face. You may not have any hatred going on, and they may be operating totally out of hatred, possibility, and you may be operating out of the vow to be with all things. That's the way this is said. It's be with all things, it's put others before yourself, it's save all beings, and the way that happens, just like with a child running into the road between two cars. You don't come, oh sweetie, don't run into the road. No, you might have to grab them by the ear and yank them back away from the traffic. So people don't realize they're running into traffic. They think they're so righteous about their activity. We see the whole world is full of this kind of craziness that just perpetuates what? Heaven and hell, heaven and hell, heaven and hell. Things are doing pretty good, now they're doing very terrible. Now they're doing very good. If I could just stay in heaven, if I could just stay in a really nice feeling. No, we can't do that. We have to relate to all these polarities, otherwise we will not see our true nature, which is not separate from anything. So I'm not validating something you do. I'm not saying you have some kind of a credential, you or me or anyone go out and just abuse anyone. But if you're meeting your own mind where it's at by the sitting practice of meditation, you're watching what comes in your own mind without pushing it, without pulling it, and without shutting it away or distracting yourself from it, but just receiving. Then there's more likelihood that when in your everyday life, when you get up off the meditation cushion, you go to the kitchen table, you go to your workplace, or you relate with your partner and your relationship or your family or your neighbor, that you're going to be very direct and straightforward with them, understanding. And this doesn't mean you buy into their bullshit. I mean, you just don't have to agree with that crap, or magnetize them into another way of understanding it. No, be respectful of people's confusion. And the way you do that, you may have to listen to a lot of crap in order to find that heartbeat underneath all that baloney, because there is one. There isn't that person, the most horrible person out there, not separate from the Buddha, but it may take a lot of work to see that or understand that. More? Okay.
Pain bowing. No, that's very helpful. I did have another question regarding respecting others' confusion. Would you also say we should respect the illusion? I'm thinking specifically, you used to sometimes talk about not going into bad neighborhoods. Like it might be an illusion, but going into certain conversations or a bar if you're a drunk might be an illusion, but it could still screw you over if you went there.
It can. I think the bad neighborhood idea is a good one. I've used that when I'm talking to people who are dealing with addictions, not particularly talking about Buddhism, but I did a lot of teaching in rehab where people are not particularly interested in Buddhism, but they're interested in working with their addiction. And so sitting practice and meditation can be very helpful, along with lots of other approaches to that that are done in the more mundane area. Yeah, bad neighborhoods, if you can, stay out of the bad neighborhood. And that means the conversation with certain people, change the subject, pacify situations rather than, and if you can't pacify, then you may have to magnetize the person away from the bad neighborhood, or magnetize yourself away from the bad neighborhood, or walk out of the room. You don't have to meet people in the middle of a cesspool of their own mind. It's so very, I stress this word over and over, it's very situational, and there's no way you can figure it out ahead of time. But if you spend a lot of time on the cushion watching the confusion of your own mind, and you've somewhat made friends with your own negativity, you're no longer at war with yourself, then you're less likely to go to war with people that are just running away from their own fear and are creating a lot of chaos in the world. They're everywhere, all over. Thank you so much. I think we're good here for tonight.
Penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-ho-san Shifu Shi-son Bu-sa Moko-sa Moko-ho-ja-ho-ro-mi. The 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokokoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.
I think we're having a ceremony this afternoon. Is that available?
Yes, at
Everyone?
at 3 o'clock.
At 3 o'clock, where we're to acknowledge the 4-year anniversary of the establishment of the Order of Immediate Light. You're welcome.